Hello, and welcome to the series on how science proves there is a creator. How the scientific evidence shows that there is intelligent design. There are two basic groups of thought about how we and everything else exist. One is evolution. Evolution, with that, is the idea that all that is here, all that exists, came about basically by random chance. Over eons and eons, millions and billions of years, through the process of evolution, through adaptations, and through mutations. That's basically the argument that is given. The other line of thought is that no, there is intelligent design in the universe, and that we are here because of an intelligent designer. Therefore, we are created. We believe in a creator, and most people who believe in a creator believe in God. What I want to look at in this series, I don't want to get real technical. And I don't want to look at all of the arguments for evolution and all of the arguments against evolution. It gets way too technical. It gets way too burdensome. It's been done thousands of times and been argued by people a whole lot smarter than I am. That's not the purpose of this. When I started to put this together, I wanted to keep it very simple and very plain, because I honestly believe that there are just some basic things that we can look at that we all agree upon exist, and that it can intelligently point us in one direction or the other. That's really what I want to do here. Again, the evolutionist believes that everything just happened by random chance, and the creationist believes that no, we were put here by a designer. Both sides agree on one thing. We're here. We are here. That seems almost laughable to say it, but my point is the universe is here. The stars and the planets are here. Earth is here. We are here. The animals are here. Life exists. Things exist. We are here. We're not just simply a myth. We're not a computer program. We are real. So now the question is, that's what we agree upon, that we're real. What we disagree on is how we got here. How in the world did all of this happen? That's what we want to look at here. I just want to basically take some facts and put them before you for you to simply make up your own mind. Now, again, neither evolution nor creation can be proven. Neither one of them can be proven. Evolution has not been proven. It is not a proven fact. I know there are a lot of people that say, oh, yes, it is. There's a lot of scientists out there that say, oh, yes, it is. It's a proof. And they, even if they don't say it, they kind of project themselves that this is just absolutely, totally true. And if you don't believe in evolution, there's just something wrong with you. I mean, you're just, you're severely lacking in intelligence, because any reasonable thinking, intelligent person is naturally going to conclude that evolution is real because science says it's real. Just look at some of the scientists that you see on television that have their different programs. They come out with almost a cocky arrogance and just state things so much as fact. I love watching these nature shows. What do they call it? I want to say Animal Planet. The British broadcasting network has one, Planet Earth, and Planet Earth 2. I mean, the things that they show you there are absolutely, totally phenomenal. I mean, I sit there and look at these things and I'm mesmerized. And then you've always got the gentleman that narrates it, David Attenborough. and then he comes out with the, billions and billions of years, and look how all of this is, and they just state it as fact that all of this just absolutely, totally evolved. Even though when you listen to these people on these nature programs, every once in a while, they'll talk about how this was designed and that was designed and that, and it's almost like the word slipped out, but, they never answer who designed it, or in their mind, it's absolutely illogical that you don't see design, but they always go back to the evolution. My whole point, without me arguing all of that, is that no matter how much they push this, no matter how arrogant some of the people, not all, but some of them might get about it, no matter how emphatically they state it, evolution has not been proved. They have not proven it. And there are a multitude of scientists who do not believe in evolution. In fact, it's actually, if you look at the studies, becoming weaker and weaker, because more and more people are seeing evidence for design. That's the exact reason that I put this series together, because I honestly believe that the more that science has discovered, and the more that the scientists have shown us, give us so much more evidence of intelligent design. We know things today that 10, 15, 20, 30, certainly 50, 100 years ago, we didn't have a clue about them, a clue about how they worked. And now the science has shown these things and their ability to get inside, especially the human body, and see how things work and tell us how this happens and that happens. And that's what we're going to take time to look at. It's just the more they uncover and the more they discover, just shows that there is no way this could have happened by random chance. But that's my disclaimer right up front. Anyone who watches any of my videos, let me be totally honest, you know that I'm a Christian, you know that I believe in God, and therefore I believe that God created us. So I'll say that right up front. So am I biased? Am I prejudiced? I guess you could say so. I'm coming from that. But I honestly, and if I gave my testimony, it was really the design of certain things before I ever became a true Christian. It was really the design that I saw in things always caused me to believe that there was a God. I didn't get into things deep theologically. I didn't study things deeply, but I just simply looked at certain things, and maybe later on through the series I'll tell you what it was. But I looked at these things and said, somebody had to make this. Somebody had to put this. I remember I used to say before I was a Christian that if you could conclusively show me, if you could prove to me beyond any shadow of a doubt that God did not exist, then I would believe that little green men from Mars put us here, or wherever. My whole point being, even if you could prove to me that God did not exist, I cannot believe in evolution. I cannot go over to the side of this all just happened by random chance with no purpose over billions of years. It's just too illogical. That's me. And I'm saying it up front where I'm at. But my goal here is to present to you some basic facts. And these are facts. These are things that science has shown us, that scientists believe. In fact, we know these facts because science has given them to us. So both sides agree with this. And to just simply look at it and say, what is more reasonable? Random chance or intelligent design? You look at it. Try if you can, that if you come here as an evolutionist, and just simply take the biases and put them aside, to have your mind just preset into something. Because I know in anything, if our mind is preset, then no matter what truth, no matter what facts, no matter what evidence comes our way, we're simply not going to believe it. We're going to argue against it. We do that in religion. That gets done in religion. Once a person has their mind set, it doesn't matter what you, don't confuse me with the facts. This is what they're going to believe. Some people get into certain religious beliefs and having nothing to do with creation, but they're going to defend it no matter what. You get that way in politics. If you're on one side or that side, or, you know, if you're not for this person, everything in the world they do is wrong. If you are for that person, they could be standing there with a smoking gun. They didn't do it. You'll make excuses for them. You bend, twist, mutilate. Don't confuse me, again, with the facts. I don't want to know. You know what I mean. We get prejudiced. We need to back up from this. We need to back up and say, let me look at this in a logical manner. Let me look at this with an open mind. So again, I'm not going to get into a long, drawn-out kind of intricate arguments about all of this and this and this. I just want to basically look at some things that we all agree upon. And then when we get done looking at them, or even as we're going through them, you decide which is or what is a more reasonable explanation for these things that we know that exist. Random chance, no intelligent design, or an intelligent designer, a creator. Which one absolutely makes more sense? Now, if you're sitting there and you've kind of tuned into this and looking at this and you're saying, well, you know, I don't have a problem with creation and I believe in God and this and that, and so not much point for me watching this series, I would encourage you to watch it anyhow, because I'll tell you why. When we look at some of these things, if you're coming from the premise that you already believe in God, let me tell you something. It is absolutely going to encourage you in your faith. It's going to encourage you in your belief, because as I said before, whether you believe in evolution or you believe in creation, they're both done by faith. Evolution has not been proven, and creation has not been proven. We can't go back to, even though we believe that God created, we can't go back to that time and look at it and see it. We can't reproduce that, so we can't stand right there and watch God as he produced things on each single day. So technically, we can't prove it. Just as the evolutionists can't go back when things were beginning, and they have a whole chain of things that they can't put together, so they can't absolutely prove it. So it takes an element of faith on both sides. But my whole premise is, because we can't conclusively prove by observation and testing, that does not mean that there's not enough evidence to come to a reasonable, logical conclusion about how we are here and how we exist. And so for the Christian, I'm saying, look at this, because when you see these things, I know as I went through this and I studied these things and started listing them, that it really strengthened my faith. It made me sit back more in awe of God and say, as the psalmist said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So I would encourage you to stay with this and to follow us through. And let me say, too, that a number of precursors here, that one, when I say science or scientists, in this series I am referring primarily, probably almost exclusively, to those who endorse evolution. I'm well aware of, and becoming more aware of, that there's more and more scientists who are good scientists, but do not believe in evolution. But for this series, when you hear me say that, that's primarily what I'm referring to. And secondly, as we start to look at these things, we're going to go through about 20-25 different things. And you're going to see, more often than not, I'm going to be reading some of this, because my mind just can't hold it all. I just, better off to read it than I stumble all over it. But the goal here, or the purpose here, is not to memorize all of these things. When we start talking about different parts of the body and things like that, excuse me, and how it's made up, there's not going to be a quiz at the end of the series. It's not going to be a medical exam. So you don't have to memorize it. You don't have to, be able to grocery list all of the parts. And we don't really have to understand completely how they function. What I want to do as I go through these things, I want us on each one to just sit back and say, these things exist, because they do. You can't argue that. There's no argument there. These things exist. What is the more reasonable, logical answer for how these things exist and how they do what they do? Is it more reasonable to believe that they simply evolved randomly over billions of years? Or is it more reasonable to believe that there is intelligent design here? That these things are here and they exist and they function in the manner that they function in because some type of intelligence made them, put them here. You have intelligent design, which means you have an intelligent designer, which means you have a creator. That's what we want to keep flowing through our mind. That's the whole purpose of this study, to just look at these, and when we're all said and done, you make a decision. You make a decision. You think about these things. Which is more reasonable of an answer? Okay, let's just start grocery listing and going right through of them. Some I'm going to hit quite quickly. Overall, I'm going to hit everything lightly. I would encourage you, if you want, dig in and study. I mean, I'm scratching the surface on these things, just scratching the surface. There's more and more depth that you could go to and get things that more deeply and more intricately. I'm just going to look through the surface at them and just kind of grocery list and show us what is here that we can agree on. First, I want to start with looking at the human body and just kind of very simplistically break it down, some of the major things, not everything, but some of the major things with the human body. Number one, we have a skeleton. The human body has a skeleton. We're made up of bones. 206 bones in the body. And the bones are connected with a network of tendons and ligaments and cartilage. And muscles are attached to them in order to make these bones move. The bones are put together with lubricating hinges and joints. We have an arm socket that can move. We have our hip socket. We have our ankles, and we have the kneecap and the fingers, and how everything is, got certain movement in them, and the joints that they have so that movement can take place, how we can bend at an elbow, and how all of these things can function. And I forgot to mention this, that as we go through a number of these things, some of them we're not even aware of. Again, thank you, science, that you've shown us these things that are here. But there's other things that are so common that we don't even think about them. We kind of just take them for granted, like the skeleton in our body. I mean, who goes around every day thinking about their bones? I mean, unless they ache or unless you bang something, nobody's saying, hey, I just fixed my glasses because I have a skeleton and I have bones in my hand, and I can take my hand and I can go like that with my glasses, and then I can put it back down and I can sit up straight. But think about it now. We have this within us, and they're all connected with the ligaments and the tendons and the muscles so that we can move. Think about moving. My hand's just sitting here on the desk. It now went up. How did that happen? If you really sit and study that, sit back and think about it, a multitude of things just took place for me to just do this. Because there's the skeleton, but how's that? You go in your doctor's office and look at the skeleton, and he's got it laying there, and it ain't going to move. So how did that go up? There's muscles that took it and pulled it up. There's muscles there, there's tendons, there's ligaments, there's nerve connections, there's a brain that said go up, there's a brain that said go down. How do I do this? You don't even think about it. If I'm talking to you and I'm moving my hands, what's happening? How many muscles are functioning right now to move these fingers, to keep moving my mouth while I'm talking to you, to make my eyes blink? How many nerve things are going on? How much is the brain function to make all of it? You see it? It's mind-boggling. We take it for granted. How did that get there? All of that we have in our body is, if you will, it's hanging on the skeleton. The skeleton gives us support so that the body can function. It gives us movement, as I just said. It protects the body. You have vital organs that are here. You have a rib cage that comes around it. Did it just happen that way? Or does that show evidence of design? Having the ligaments and the muscles and the tendons to make things move. If you didn't have them, again, you'd have a skeleton, but it would just lay there. It would do nothing. Wouldn't be able to speak. My jaw is moving. My tongue is moving. I'm able to form words and say things. How? How did that come about? How did that come into existence? And the bones go on to do different things. There's calcium storage. They produce blood cells, which is vital to us living. On and on and on we could go with our skeleton and its purpose that is there. Think about it. Think about it and get into it more deeply. Secondly, let's go something a little bigger. We're just going to hit it quick though. Our circulatory system. We have a circulatory system. We have blood that keeps us alive. We're going to break that down a little bit. But we have a system that's made up of 3 major components: heart, lungs, arteries, and veins. I counted that as 1. So you have the heart, the lungs, you have arteries and veins, and that produces the circulatory system that gets everything going around in our body that needs to go around. The blood that needs to go around, that therefore makes oxygen go around, and the nutrients, the food that we need, all of that's in the blood, which we'll break down. But it's to get all the things that the body needs. How do we get all of those things to it? Through the circulatory system. Without it, we're dead. Without it, we could not live. Let's move on. What's in the circulatory system? Blood. Now, we all know we have blood, and we all know that blood is important. We all know that we can't live without it. But let's break it down just a little bit. Blood consists of plasma, red and white blood cells, and platelets. Now here's where your eyes might start to glaze over. You don't have to memorize this, but look at what they're made up of. And it's all very important. If the red blood cells or the white blood cells get out of whack, we're in trouble. Disease can come into our body. We can even die. They both have to be there, and they both have to be there in the right balance, or we don't live. Look what the blood itself does. Here's some of the functions. Again, look at what it accomplishes and look at how it functions. 1, blood supplies oxygen to all the cells and tissues in the body. Without that, we die. We need oxygen. We need oxygen to breathe in. We know that, but that's because it needs to get to all the parts of our bodies. If we don't have the oxygen, the cells die. And if the cells die, we die. So we breathe in the air, provides oxygen. If the blood provides nutrients to all the cells in the body, they have to eat. They need energy to do. Just like you have an automobile, you have to put either electricity into it if you have an electric car, or you have to put gasoline into it. You have to put fuel into it. Otherwise, it doesn't run. Our body needs energy to run on. And that comes through the food that we eat. It comes through the nutrients. And the nutrients get to all throughout the body by the blood. The blood also removes waste materials, such as carbon dioxide, urea, and lactic acid. These are things that need to come out of the body. And it comes out by way of the blood. Now again, you don't have to understand all the but look at the things, again, that absolutely have to happen. Random, design. Random or design. The blood protects the body from infection and from foreign bodies, infection through foreign bodies, through the white blood cells. Remember I said you need to have them in the right balance. The white blood cells, which are in the blood, protects the body from infection. The blood also transports hormones from one part of the body to another. It keeps the pH levels, or the acidic levels, need to be just balanced just right. Again, do I understand all of that? No. I don't know what the acidic levels don't do this or that, but I know that there's something in there that needs to be balanced and regulated just right, or I'm in trouble. The blood does that. The blood regulates body temperature. It helps to keep us at a consistent level. You know yourself, you go outside in the cold and the cold air is blowing on your face and your face starts to get colder. What happens to your face? It starts to turn red. Why does it turn red? Because there's a little guy inside your body that says, hey, their face is getting cold, and so therefore we need to get more blood up there to circulate through there, get more up there circulating in their face so we get more heat in their face so their face doesn't freeze. One of the things to ask yourself, because there's other things we're going to look at, is there a little guy inside there regulating these things? We know that's foolish. We know that's not real. We know that's not happening. But when your face starts to get cold, or your hand or your feet, Your blood knows that, it senses that, and it starts going to that area to help warm those areas up. How does it do that? I don't mean how does it get there, how does it know to do that? What makes it do that? It's absolutely unbelievable. Blood has the ability to clot. Something we know, but we don't think too much about it. When bleeding occurs, listen now, the platelets in the blood enable the clotting or the coagulation of the blood. The platelets group themselves together in order to form a clot. And what happens is when the clot comes, like you get yourself a little cut, you kind of look at it, and and then all of a sudden it stops bleeding. Certainly if it's not too severe. If it's too severe, then we need some help. But you have a cut there, and it's just now those little platelets come in there, and they start to coagulate the blood, thicken it up, and it clots, and it stops bleeding. And then from there, it hardens and forms into a scab to protect the cut, the injury. And then while his injury heals underneath, and eventually the scab just falls off. It's like putting a bandage on a cut. We come and we dab and we put a band-aid. Well, this happens naturally. How? How does that happen? How do the platelets know to do that? How do the platelets work to make all of that right there and to protect the body? And clotting of the blood, which we don't even think about. I mean, you got a farmer out in the field 100 years ago and gets a little cut. Don't worry about it. But it'll stop bleeding. Don't worry. We'll get a scab and it'll be fine. And you just keep on working. Nobody's thinking about what it does and how it happens. But, again, here's what science has shown us. In order for blood to clot, it requires the coordinated functioning of 11 different chemicals. 11 different chemicals in the body have to function precisely in order to clot that blood and to make it happen. And then you get into the balance of if the blood clots too fast, if your blood gets too thick inside your body, then you can get blood clots in your body. And you know what happens then. You get a blood clot in your body that starts to travel and it hits your heart. Good night, Irene. Turn out the lights, party's over, it's all done. You got yourself a heart attack and you're finished. And if the blood starts to clot and coagulate and make things a little too thick with your blood, then your blood's not going to circulate and you're not going to get the proper oxygen and nutrition to your body, and you got a problem. If the blood doesn't work properly and the chemicals don't balance right and your blood gets too thin, then you've got a problem where if you get a cut, you wind up bleeding to death. And things again are not going to function in your body, because now if the blood gets too thin, you're not getting enough oxygen because the blood is too thin, and you wind up dying if it gets severe enough. If it gets too thick, it doesn't circulate properly, and you wind up dying. My whole point is, look at what it does, and I've just given you 2 or 3 things here. Look at what it does in the intricacy of what it does, in the balance of how it does it. Ask yourself, did that just happen by random chance? Or did it happen by intelligent design? Do we not see some kind of intelligence working here? How do you get the blood around the body? Well, we got a heart. We know that. And that heart pump, it's an absolutely phenomenal mechanism that is there. This is how you get all the nutrients around through the body. Right now, as I'm speaking and as you're listening, your heart is pumping. Your heart is pumping and working. It pumps 60 to 70 times per minute. 60 to 70 in a normal healthy person. 93,000 times a day that heart is pumping. 653,000 times a week. 34 million times a year. And in the average lifetime, 2.4 billion times that little pump keeps itself going. And keeps everything moving around. And the heart knows how to regulate itself. If I'm sitting here in this chair and I'm just simply speaking, I'm not doing too much this and that. My heart's just, maybe it's 60, 70 times a minute. If I get up and I start to run around this room, well, now I'm using muscles. Or you're going out and you're going to run in a race now. Or you're going to go out and do your morning jogging. You know as well as I do. What happens? Well, now you're running, you're burning up more energy, your body needs, your muscles need more oxygen. How are they going to get the more energy, and how are they going to get the increase in oxygen? Well, they have to get more blood. The blood has to circulate more quickly. Well, how does that happen? Well, your heart knows that you're putting a bigger demand on it, so it starts to pump faster. And your heart rate increases. So you're running down the road and your heart's going ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Then you turn around and you stop and you cool yourself down and you sit down and the heart goes, well, okay, doesn't not burning the same amount of energy, doesn't need as much oxygen. We don't want to overpower the thing. Let's slow ourselves down. Turn it down. And it goes back to its normal heart rate. How does that happen? How does it know to do that? Is there a little guy in there going, hey, Tarsantano needs more oxygen. He needs, well, he's out there exercising finally, crank it up. It just randomly, the heart starts to beep. And then when I stop and you sit down, it just randomly knows to slow down. It doesn't just keep beating faster. I mean, once you crank it up, it keeps going. I don't think so. I don't think so. We don't see intelligent design here. And here's the last thing I want to look at. The blood is going through the body. And it goes out through, and again, I'm only breaking it down into two major avenues here, arteries and veins. There's capillaries and smaller things that get into the smaller parts of the body. But I want to look primarily at the arteries and the veins. The arteries are the vessels that carry the oxygenated blood out of the heart. It's coming after it's gone through the lungs and it's in the heart and it's got all of its oxygen. It comes out of the heart through the arteries. And the difference that I want to show you here, I think, is phenomenal. The arteries tend to be deeper in the body and they're a little bit thicker because they have to handle more pressure from the oxygenated blood. So now the oxygenated blood with all of its nutrients comes out of the heart into the arteries and gets itself all out into the parts of the body where it needs to go. Well, now we know that this is a round trip for the blood. We got the blood that we have to have, so it's got to turn around, it's got to come back. And it's got to come back up, and it's got to go in through the lungs to get oxygenated again, and it goes back into the heart. Okay, so it goes out through the arteries, goes down, gets out to the rest of our body, our extremities, it's down the bottom of our legs, it's into our feet. Now it's got to start pumping itself up. Before it's going out and down, now it's coming back up. It comes back to the heart through the veins. The veins aren't quite as thick and they're a little bit more just below the surface of the skin. And now as they're coming up, here's what you want to remember. And to me, this is just, it's so conclusive, it's mind-boggling. We know that our heart does not beat constantly. By that, I mean it doesn't just hit one pressure, bomb, and keep going. Our heart is not like turning on the water faucet. You turn on the water faucet and the water comes out, and it just keeps coming. It's a constant pressure. The water does not come out of the faucet. It just goes boom. It's like turning on a fire hose or your hose outside. It's a constant pressure. Our heart is not like that. Our heart beats. It has pulses. It goes boom, 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 boom. It pushes, stops, pushes, stops, pushes, stops. There's a pressure when it pushes and there's a pressure when it stops. That's when you go to get your blood pressure. The normal blood pressure is 120 over 80. What's it? Systolic and dystolic? I think that's the right thing. The top one is the 120. That's the pressure of when your heart pumps, when it goes, when it pushes. Then when it relaxes, that becomes the 80. It's less of a pressure. There you got about 40 points difference. Okay? So we know our heart pulsates. It's boom, 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 boom. Push, stop, push, stop. Okay, now, here's the point. It's phenomenal. The blood's coming up. Okay? It's not a constant pressure to push it up. So it's coming up from my legs or from my, and it's going boom, boom, boom. It's not just going right up. It pushes, stops, pushes, stops. So when it stops, gravity is going to make that blood want to fall back down. Because it's not going down, it's going up. So now you've really increased the pressure on the heart of how hard it's going to be to get that blood back up there. Because now you're coming from my leg going zzz, boom, zzz, boom, zzz. Maybe it's gaining, I don't know how much, if anything. So what is there in the veins that is not there in the arteries? Inside the veins, there are valves. Valves that open in one direction. So the blood's flowing this way. So the blood pushes up, the valve opens. Psh, up comes the blood. Now the heart stops pumping. The blood wants to fall back down. It closes. So the blood can't fall back down. So the blood's going boom, 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 and it keeps moving because the valves are there to prevent it from falling back down. Hello? Are those valves there? Absolutely. Has science shown us that those valves are there? Absolutely. There's no disputing it. How did that get there? How did that get there? You show me one thing on this planet that has anything flowing through it and it has valves on it that just happened. Can you not see that someone, something, some intelligence designed that valve to and it just goes one way and it's there to keep it from falling back? If that doesn't say intelligent design, are you kidding me? And what, over evolution, we figured it out as human beings? Probably the majority of human beings on this planet don't even know that they have the valves, let alone to put one in there. And if you wanted to put one in there, how would you put it in there? How would you just make it grow? We're the most intelligent beings on the planet now, and we can't make them grow. If you got a problem with your valve, they can transplant it from something else, but they just get. So how did it just grow? And how long did that take? And why wouldn't you die until they did grow? Design, design, design. I know I'm saying you sit back and think and you make the intelligent decision, and I'm kind of just ramming it down your throat, but I think that's absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. To me, that is key. When you start looking at valves and you think that valves just randomly happened. I mean, you got valves in a car, you got valves in pipes, you got valves in motors, you got anything you have a valve in, somebody designed that valve and somebody put that valve there. It did not happen on its own. All right, I'll stop there. We're going to continue on, though. We've got a few more lessons that we're going to be dealing just with the human body. I pray that you'll just hang in there, and because I think each thing that we look at just brings things more and more and more conclusive that there is intelligent design. I don't want to keep banging that because I do want to encourage you to just keep an open mind, but I've already said this is where I'm coming from, so. All right, thank you for watching. We're going to continue on part 2, looking at the digestive system. Thank you for watching. Lord bless you.